Amidst the thin mist, giant black shadows quietly entered, majestic as a newly risen force. Far away, in the sea of swaying yellow grass, eyes followed. The prairie was once again preparing for a fateful encounter. The invincible Cape Buffalo, the journey of a mother on the prairie. The sun had just risen above the horizon, its golden light pouring down on the vast sea of grass. After the night's rain, the air was still heavy, with the smell of damp soil and young mud, each dew drop glittering on the dry grass. The early wind blew, carrying the heat that was gradually spreading across the plains. From afar, a thin red dust gradually rolled up with the wind. It spread, slowly but unstoppably, signaling that something giant was approaching. They were the true giants of the African savanna. The massive body is covered with thick black skin. Each bundle of muscles rolls up with each heavy step, making the ground shake. On the head are a pair of curved horns, hard as steel, connected at the forehead to form a natural shield, the most formidable protective armor of the herbivore world. The sunlight reflects on the dusty skin, making them look like moving black rocks. Deep eyes, calm gaze, but hiding constant vigilance. They live in tight, disciplined, and absolutely united herds. Whenever a predator appears, the herd immediately forms a formation, the male buffalo facing outward, the female buffalo, and the calf in the middle of a living wall that is almost impenetrable. No noise, no panic, just slow, steady movements, but enough to make all predators wary. On the steppe, they are not the rulers, but the only species that can make the rulers retreat. But in the open world of the savanna, other eyes were watching every move. The sun was high in the sky, the heat bouncing off the ground like a fiery mirror. The herd of buffalo continued to march through the sea of yellow grass, heads bowed low, horns level, eyes shining with instinctive vigilance. A death signal. From both sides of the bushes, yellow shadows rushed out. The pride of lions had surrounded them before, completely encircling the herd's movement. The herd of buffalo immediately reacted. Just a few minutes later, the yellow shadows began to retreat, the tired lions retreating into the red bushes. The Cape buffalo had won, not just because of their huge bodies or their steel-hard horns, but because of their absolute unity and unyielding instinct. They did not run away. They counterattacked. And that made the proudest predator of the savanna bow before the power of the invincible herbivore. But in the chaos of that victory, a lone shadow was swept away from the formation. In the dust and echoing roars, Syra, a mature female buffalo, escaped the encirclement by survival instinct. She ran in the direction of the wind, avoiding the predator's claws, but when she stopped, all around her was absolute silence. No more roaring in response, no more scent of her kind, only wind, grass, and the scorched space stretching to the horizon. In the distance, the buffalo herd had left, continuing their journey to the northern grasslands. In the midst of the sea of burning grass, Syra stood still, her deep eyes reflecting the sunlight, the gaze of a strong but lost creature, beginning a dangerous, solitary journey across the steppe. The sun rose high, the sunlight pouring down like bright blades. Syra walked in the sea of burning grass, each step heavy, her legs trembling with exhaustion. Red dust covered her back. Her breathing was rapid, but her eyes were still bright, the gaze of a creature that would not allow itself to fall. She had been walking for hours since she lost her pack. There was no longer the familiar call of her kind, only the chirping of cicadas and the rustling of dry grass under her feet. Syra's body trembled as the moment of birth came. She stopped beside a low bush, the only fragile shade in the fierce heat. Her breathing was rapid, each contraction spread throughout her body. On the steppe, there was no shelter, no protection, only a mother's instinct. Then, in a moment of silence, life spoke for the first time. A small, wet, trembling baby fell to the warm grass. Syra bowed her head, gently licking each patch of dirt on her baby's body, wiping away the blood and the smell of birth, a smell that could call predators from miles away. Every movement was slow and careful, as if the whole world around it had stopped to witness this sacred moment. The cub struggled to stand up, its weak legs trembling, falling, and then standing again. The sunlight filtered through the thin layer of leaves, illuminating two red, dusty bodies, one large, one small, beginning their first journey of survival in the fiery land of Africa. But the scent of blood in the wind had already spread far away. On the northern hilltop, a pack of hyenas had caught the scent. Short shadows began to move in the fiery afternoon light, and Syra and her cub's fight for survival had just begun. The red afternoon light gradually spread across the ground. The pack of hyenas appeared from the edge of the savanna, short shadows, their bright yellow eyes reflecting the fading sunlight. Their hoarse laughter echoed far away in the dry wind like a death announcement. Syra stopped. Her ears stood up. Her curved horns lowered. The cub beside her trembled and clung to her mother's legs, its eyes wide with fear. The scavengers slowly surrounded her, moving in a circle, their heads bowed, their white teeth bared in the sunset light. And then, the maternal instincts kicked in. The hyenas stopped. The wounded ones whimpered. The others retreated, their eyes still shining but mixed with fear. The air gradually quieted. Syra stood in the red dust. Below her, the cub nestled against her mother's belly, its innocent eyes seeing the world for the first time, where life and death were only a breath apart. When the sun finally set behind the horizon, the hyenas retreated, leaving behind a ravaged and silent land. Only the will of a mother who fought to the end to keep her life. The sky gradually faded from the black of the night, giving way to a gentle pink on the horizon. Each early morning breeze gently shook the dewy grass blades, carrying the scent of moist soil and water vapor from the distant valley. The first light of the new day filtered through the thin mist, illuminating the two figures of Syra and her baby. She began to nibble on some grass, still covered with dew. Behind her, the baby was still lying flat on the ground, eyes half closed, breathing steadily in a short nap. After a long, tiring night, that small body had not yet had time to get used to the harsh world out there. The baby stirred, its legs trembling, then slowly stood up. It yawned. Shook its head, then walked to its mother's side, its eyes still sleepy but full of trust. Syra walked lightly. The baby immediately followed. Two figures, one large, one small, leaving the dewy land, heading towards the bright light of dawn. On the endless grasslands, a new day began, and the journey to find the herd continued slowly but full of hope. The sun was high in the sky, casting a harsh golden light on the sea of grass that stretched to the horizon. Syra and her cub walked slowly through the waist-high dry grass, where the hot wind blew, making the air tremble like a mirage. The sound of cicadas and crickets harmonized with a familiar hum of the afternoon in the steppe. The calf was stronger. It ran around a few steps, then returned to its mother's side, its curious eyes looking out at the wide world. Syra still steadfastly moved forward, her ears always perked up, sniffing every gust of wind. Instinct told her that there was water nearby. Syra and her calf followed an old path leading to a low-lying area where there might still be water. Suddenly, Syra stopped. Her ears stood up, her eyes squinted as she looked ahead. A deep roar echoed from the distant valley, long and powerful. Not a lion, not a hyena. It was a sound that could only come from the other giants of the steppe. Ahead, in the middle of an open space, two male rhinos were facing each other. Their bodies were massive, their thick gray skin cracked, covered with red dust. The breath was like the wind blowing through an iron pipe, each movement sending sand and rocks flying. On their heads, two sharp curved horns glistened in the sunlight, a weapon that could tear apart a tree trunk or pierce an opponent with just one thrust. They stood motionless, only a few meters apart. There was no sound, only heat and the pounding of their hearts. A slight slide of a hoof was enough to turn the silence into a storm. Syra stood still with her calf in the distance, hiding behind a low mound. Instinct made her understand that this was not her battle, but a confrontation between two ancient forces. The wind blew, dust flew. The two rhinos bowed their heads at the same time, lowering their horns. The air was as tense as a bowstring about to snap. Then, in an instant, two giant muscles charged at each other like thunder. Syra turned her head to look around, unable to stay any longer. The two retreated silently westward, following the hillside, away from the dusty area that had been obscured by the battle. As Syra and her cub disappeared into the tall grass, the afternoon sunlight turned a coppery red, reflecting off the ground like a small flame in the fierce desert. Another day was coming to an end, and the journey to find the herd was not over yet. After many days of wandering, they finally approached the land where the herd had been traced. Hope seemed to have reached them. But the wind changed direction. From the edge of the grassland, golden shadows appeared low, slow, and silent. The lions had followed the Cape buffalo mother and cub. They silently closed in, their eyes glowing in the crimson sunset. Syra sensed danger. The cub clung close to its mother's belly, its small legs trembling as the rustling of the grass grew closer. The atmosphere was thick, heavy, as if time had stopped. And then, the fight broke out. But suddenly, the ground began to shake. From the west, red dust rose, and in the last rays of the sunset, giant black shadows appeared. The Cape buffalo herd. They had heard the cry for help from their brethren. The whole herd charged, the ground shook, the grass flew up. The lion turned. A moment's hesitation, then they fled. The roar rang out again, but this time, it was no longer a challenge, but a greeting. Mother and child had officially returned to the herd. The herd moved slowly north, their shadows stretching across the red sunset ground. Syra walked in the middle of the herd, her cubs running around beside her, safe in the protection of hundreds of giant bodies. The steppe returned to its old rhythm, where unity was life, and mother-child love had written an eternal chapter in the world of blood and dust. The sun set, the Cape buffalo herd gradually disappeared, leaving behind a tangle of footprints on the cracked ground. Syra and her cubs have found their pack again, but here, peace never lasts. Far away, in the thickening darkness, the golden eyes of the predators still watch, waiting for a new opportunity. On the steppe, each day of survival is just the beginning of another challenge. And somewhere out there, a new battle for survival is about to begin. Stay tuned for the next episode. When the dry season returns, the steppe will once again be ablaze with battles for life. And don't forget to ring the bell and subscribe so you don't miss the next wildlife survival series. When one fire dies, its ashes light another. From the darkness and hatred, a new generation rises to continue the war that this land has never known an end to. The Queen of the Hyenas. Serengeti Blood Vengeance. Before dawn has fully broken, the Serengeti is already covered in a pale red ash. In the distance, the herd of antelope moves slowly, away from the land that has just been soaked with blood. The early morning wind is dry, carrying with it the heat and the lingering smell of rotting flesh. In the midst of that space, the endless savanna is both beautiful and terrifying, like its nature, where life and death coexist in every breath. From the horizon, the weak light of the sun begins to penetrate the dust, and it is also a sign that another storm is coming. In the misty morning mist, Kali's figure appeared steady, silent, but carrying a hidden storm. Behind her, the hyenas walked slowly, heads bowed. Not a single hoarse laugh rang out. The air between them was thick, heavy as lead. All eyes were on the queen who had just taken revenge, but no one dared to utter a word about victory. For in the Serengeti, every victory had its price. From here, she saw the western plains, the lion's territory where the sun shone, golden but cold. Her eyes narrowed, the light reflected in two red spots, like a fire smoldering under the ashes. Behind her, Sira's cub stepped forward, nestling at her feet. It raised its head, its black eyes shining with curiosity mixed with instinct. Kali looked at it. In its eyes, she saw the same Sira as before. The child was named Kira by Kali. The name means light, the light that Sira lit in the midst of her despair. From that moment on, that light took on a new form. Kira, son of Sira, granddaughter of Queen Kali, born amid ashes and blood to continue the destiny of the hyena queens. The wind blew, carrying dust and the distant echoes of other predators. In the vast steppe, the queen set out, carrying the child of her blood and the unquenched fire of revenge in her heart. On the Serengeti, when the sun rose, a new cycle began. But this time, it brought not only life, but also the signal for a power struggle that would burn the steppe. The sun rose higher, casting a golden light on the sea of burnt grass. Kali led Kira across the parched land, where life had to hide in every little shade. He was older, his legs were steady, but his eyes were still young, eager and fearful. Ahead of them was a herd of antelope grazing on the edge of the mound. Ahead, a young antelope was separated from the herd, absorbed in grazing. It was an opportunity. Kali stopped, lowering her body, as if on command. Kira paused, then began to imitate. Kali's every step was a lesson. No sound, no haste, only breath and purpose. She taught her how to use the wind to cover her scent, how to choose the weakest in the herd, how to wait for the right moment when the prey was off guard. She began to imitate crouching low, walking slowly, adjusting her direction with the wind to hide her scent. Under the slanting sunlight, her every movement was a combination of clumsiness and instinct, of learning and genetics. That instinct is what makes hyenas hunters and robbers at the same time. They not only have jaws 3 times stronger than lions, but also possess incredible endurance, able to chase prey for dozens of kilometers until it is exhausted. Kali gave a short hiss to signal action. Kira lunged forward, clumsy, stumbling in the grass but not stopping. Kira's first hunt was underway. Kali did not intervene. She merely stood and watched, her eyes measuring the child's every movement. When the young antelope fell, a gasp echoed across the Serengeti. Kali did not approach, but stood at a distance. Her gaze was cold, but there was a spark of recognition in it. Kira bent down to take the first clumsy bite of meat, still mixed with the smell of grass and earth, but it was the first time he tasted true survival. In the wind, there was only the child's gasping breath and Kali's cold eyes, the eyes of someone who saw the future of the throne. One who had lost everything was teaching the other the final lesson. On this step, survival was not just about surviving, but learning to kill, dominate, and write one's name in the bloodline of the Serengeti. The afternoon slanted over the Serengeti. The hot wind blew again, carrying the smell of earth and the heat from the burnt grass. Kira had left Kali's sight, wandering alone in the hollow, where a herd of antelope had just passed. His hunger made him more urgent, crouching low, his nose close to the ground to follow the scent. Each breath was a limping, hunting rhythm of his immature but eager youth. Then suddenly, from behind the tall grass, another shadow appeared. Slender, graceful, back-arched, long tail sweeping lightly in the wind. It was a cheetah. Pale yellow fur with black spots, black-rimmed eyes as sharp as blades, body full of muscles but thin as the blowing wind. Two eyes met, hunting instinct facing survival instinct. No roar, no hiss, only silence, as tense as a string about to snap. The cheetah tilted its head slightly, observing the low-shouldered creature looking at it with more curiosity than challenge. It knew clearly that the hyena was not prey, nor was it a real danger. As for Kira, for the first time facing a stranger, it did not laugh, did not roar, but radiated a quiet majesty. The scent of the antelope herd wafted past. Both of them raised their heads, looking in the same direction. For a moment, instinct made them almost walk side by side. Two different predators sharing the same beat of a harsh life. Then the cheetah turned silently, as fast and clean as an arrow cutting through the sea of grass. Kira watched, his eyes shining with a vague admiration. In that brief moment, he learned one thing on this step: not every encounter needed blood to prove the right to exist. He turned back, continuing his journey to find prey, with, in his heart, a new image of the hunter, calm, precise, and without laughter to sow fear. Red light filled the riverside. Vultures circled high above. The smell of fresh meat wafted in the wind. At the foot of the hill, a wildebeest carcass lay scattered. And beside it, a lion was roaring softly, sinking its fangs into the feast it had just hunted. From afar, a cloud of dust rose, A hoarse laugh spread across the ground. Kali appeared first, hunchbacked, thick-necked, eyes cold. Behind, Kira stepped out, his fur spotted with dust, his eyes burning. The pack stretched out like a living river, surging in silence. Its golden eyes met the cold black gaze of the queen. Two worlds collided, power and hatred. Instinct and blood debt. Kali responded with a low hiss, the signal for war. The pack of hyenas scattered in an arc, surrounding the lion. And then, the hyenas' revenge war broke out. The lion's last roar echoed in the dusk and then stopped. Kira stood panting, his body bleeding, but his eyes shining. He approached, stepping on the lion's body not to eat, but to witness the price his mother's killer would pay. Kali looked at her nephew, her eyes no longer cold as before. In the middle of the red grass, two generations of hyenas, one taking revenge, one destined to succeed, stood on the body of the Lion King. But on the step, the throne never stood still. The blood of today's lions will call the strong tomorrow. The sun slowly sank below the horizon, casting its last rays over the vast grasslands. Kali's hyenas scattered, their bodies covered in wounds. Kira stood beside her, her eyes still on the dead prey, the symbol of the last hatred washed away. But in the Serengeti, peace never lasts. The smell of blood and rotting flesh drifted far and wide, carried on the wind, and from the east, another sound rose. In the deep orange of the sunset, the African wild dogs were clearly visible, their bodies long, their legs high, their fur mottled black and yellow as if painted by the wind and dust itself. They stopped at the edge of the lion's blood-soaked ground, sniffing the air with quick, short breaths. The scent of hyenas, lions, and raw meat all mixed together, stimulating their hunting instincts. The leader was an adult male, with thin shoulders but solid muscles. He inhaled deeply, his ears erect. In that gaze was a terrifying intelligence that made this species known as the tactician of the savanna. They did not hunt for revenge, nor kill for power. Every action was controlled by perfect calculation and absolute solidarity. The signal was transmitted by just a glance, a tail movement. In a few seconds, the whole pack changed formation and divided into two branches, one group going around to the wind, the other group holding position behind. If the lion is the lone power, the hyena is the recklessness, then the wild dog is the strategy born of order and loyalty. In the tall grass, the soft footsteps blend into the wind. The target is not the hyena, but the carcass with the meat still intact on the flank. In this world, food is territory, and territory is life. But just a small movement from Kali, the whole pack of wild dogs immediately stops. They know clearly the danger in front of them. The jaws of the hyena can crush the leg bone in a single bite, and if surrounded, they can turn into crazy laughing demons in the flesh. The distance between the two species is only a few meters, but time seems to stop. A moment of perfect balance between war and reason. Then the leader of the wild dogs takes a step back. It is not fear, just a strategic decision, quiet and cold. His pack disperses as ordered, disappearing into the golden grass like shadows of wind. Kali watched, her eyes narrowing. She understood that these people had not lost. They were just waiting for another opportunity. On this step, the smart ones did not need to roar to dominate. They just needed to be patient, waiting for the next time blood was shed. The Serengeti night wind crept across the grasslands, carrying the scent of blood left by the massacre. On that red land, only the distant echoes of life lurking in the darkness remained. Kali stood still, her eyes following the sky, where the wild dogs had just disappeared. In the silence, she understood more clearly than ever that in this land there were no eternal winners, only those strong enough to live another day. Kira approached, her fur glinting in the first moonlight. In her eyes, there was no fear, only the awareness of one who had seen too much. Kali bowed her head, gently touching her nephew's forehead. a wordless ritual between two generations of a powerful bloodline. In the distance, the howling of wild dogs sounded like a warning for the coming of a new era. The lion had fallen, but the wind still carried the scent of challenge. In a world where blood was the only language, every creature was preparing for the next battle, where today's hunter could become tomorrow's prey. On top of the mound, the hyena queen turned away. Her shadow melted into the night, leaving only Kira standing watching, her eyes glowing like two small flames in the vast grassland. It was the light of the continuation of the light of war, of survival, and of a throne that had never slept. The Serengeti was silent again. But underground, the ashes still smoldered, waiting for the first wind to ignite the flames of a new war. Another era was about to begin. And blood would be spilled again. Don't forget to ring the bell and subscribe so you don't miss the next wildlife survival series. The yellow grass was torn in two. A dry screech rang out. In the parched Okavango, speed was more than just an advantage. It was the boundary between life and death. Okavango. The fastest chase between cheetah and antelope. Late afternoon fell over the Okavango like a pale red curtain, emitting the smell of hot earth mixed with the steam from the shrinking lakes. There were no more bird calls, no wind, no movement, only a silence as heavy as a stone pressing down on the ground after the morning's frantic chase. In that space, the female cheetah's emaciated body stood out in the sea of gray grass, each step slow and heavy, as if drained of every last drop of strength. The cubs were hiding under the low thorn bushes just a few hundred meters away, their eyes constantly turned towards their mother, bewildered between hunger and inarticulate instinctive fear. Further west, where the water had stagnated into the muddy pools left by the flood, a pack of African wild dogs was moving. They moved as one, fast, coordinated, and calculating. The leader, an older female with a razor-sharp gaze, stopped when she caught the scent of sweat and defeat on the wind. She knew something was weakening, And in the world of wild dogs, weakness is opportunity. On the other side, 3 spotted hyenas, their laughter hoarse and their breath heavy with the smell of carrion, were following the tracks of the morning impala escape. They weren't looking for victory, they were looking for an opening. Any opening. And in the Okavango, where everything was weary from the drought, openings were always there. Cheetah, wild dogs, hyenas were all heading toward the same land, where the sun was about to drop below the horizon and dye the plains a wild orange. Each one was there for a different reason. The cheetahs for hunger, the wild dogs for opportunity, the hyenas for predatory instincts. None of them knew that tonight the Okavango would witness the collision of 3 forces, where speed, strategy, and ruthlessness would collide like 3 sharp blades. And the prey had not yet appeared. Dusk was creeping over the Okavango like a red-orange silk, stretching across the dry dunes and the receding water. The last light of day made everything sharper, harsher. Yellow dust rose into a thin mist. The wind blew endlessly through the grass torn from the morning's hunt. Everything seemed to be preparing for something that was silently moving. Then the first incident appeared. From the marsh, a startled cry rang out, sharp. Broken and full of panic, the wild dogs immediately changed formation, their long, thin bodies turning in a perfect arc. The sunset reflected off the leader's eyes, making them look like iron orange arrows. He recognized the cry as a wounded young impala left behind from the morning run. The scent of blood, thin but distinct, drifted on the hot wind at the end of the day. Not far away, the 3 hyenas stopped too. In the red sunset, their mottled fur looked like distorted shadows on the ground. They turned their heads almost simultaneously, then began to move toward the sound with a heavy, steady step. The kind of step that didn't hurry, but always arrived just in time for the prey to fall. The female cheetah heard it last. She stopped in the open grass, the orange sunlight sweeping down her slender back like a sad story. Her body trembled slightly, not from fear, but from exhaustion. The two cubs were still waiting in the thorn bushes in the distance, their black eyes wide open, looking at their mother, unaware that the fate of the evening depended on the next few seconds. The female cheetah raised her head. The cry came again. It understood. There was no other choice. As the leopard stepped toward it, the ground beneath her feet trembled slightly. The wild dogs were closing in from the left. The hyenas were closing in from the right. The sunset cast its shadow behind all three, stretching them out like three spears aimed at the same target. A moment later, the young impala burst from the grass, slender, trembling, its legs muddy. The last light of day clung to the drop of blood on its flank, red like a beacon to any predator. And just like that, chaos ensued. The wild dogs accelerated like golden arrows. The hyenas changed direction, cornering from higher up. The cheetah charged forward despite its exhaustion in the final sprint of one who staked his life on a single moment. There was no darkness. There was no night. There was only the blazing dusk and the inevitable collision. Dusk was falling fast on the edge of the Okavango Delta as the three forces collided at the same point. The young impala was only a few breaths away from life. The wild dogs from the left, the hyenas from the right, the cheetahs in front. All three charged into the open like whirlwinds in shape. The wild dogs were the closest. One of the pack leaped up, its long legs flailing toward its prey, but the impala turned at the last moment. The gap that had opened up had not yet closed when the cheetah squeezed in. It dashed across at a speed impossible for its exhausted body. The gap was only 3 meters. 2 meters. Its body was stretched out, its forelegs stretched out in a desperate effort. The hyenas charged from the right. They were not aiming at the impala. They were aiming at the cheetahs themselves. The impalas charged, but the wild dogs had caught on. They split up, one group pressing from the left, the other blocking from the right, forming a sharp arc. The hyenas charged into the darkest part of that arc, cutting off the wild dogs' path, forcing them to move aside. The chaos spread like a fire fanned by the wind. Then they all collided. In that moment, no one knew who would win. The only truth was that the chance of survival was shrinking like the sun touching the horizon. The leopard retreated step by step, its eyes fixed on the movements of the dogs. The afternoon wind blew against it, carrying the scent of the two cubs. Then, in a split second, the cheetah's strategic instinct made the best decision for survival: retreat. The leopard crouched low, leaped hard to the right, and charged straight out of the encirclement before the wild dogs could close in. The hyena followed a short distance, but stopped when it saw that the wild dogs had almost gained the upper hand. The mother leopard broke away from the fight, leaving behind yellow dust, screams, and chaos swirling in circles. She no longer had a chance with the impala. But she still had 2 lives waiting for her return. The mother leopard slipped through the sparse thorn bushes in the late afternoon light. It was panting, each breath heavy as a stone pressing down on its chest. But its eyes, though tired, had never lost their vigilance. The 2 cubs heard the footsteps and immediately ran out. One rubbed its head against its mother's belly. The other stood tall and looked towards the orange bushes that were gradually falling in the distance, where the battle had ended without a winner. The mother leopard did not roar or cry. She just stood still, her body trembling slightly from exhaustion, but still tried to shield the 2 cubs behind her. She had lost her meal. But she kept the most important thing: her life and that of her cubs. The new dawn returned to the Okavango like a thin silver blade, cutting through the light mist that still lingered on the ground after the hot, dry night. The first light of the day covered the golden grass mounds with a brilliant shine, covering the chaotic traces of the previous afternoon. There were no more growls, no more breaths of wild dogs or hyenas. There was only a new silence, different from the heavy silence of last night. This was the silence of a day starting over. The mother leopard stood on the low mound, her body still thin but her eyes sharper. The short sleep of last night was not enough to dispel her hunger, but it was enough to restore her most important weapon, speed. In the distance, the impala herd was moving towards the new grass that had just sprouted after the night dew. An adult impala separated from the herd, its ears twitching slightly, sniffing the cold, damp air. At that moment, the wind carried the scent of the leopard. And the leopard also noticed the separation of its prey. The yellow grass under its feet moved slightly. A light rustling sound rang out. The long muscles began to tighten. A new day. A new hunt. And this time, there were only two left in the speed race. The mother leopard crouched low, pushing all of its weight forward. The impala turned its head, its eyes wide open. In just a breath of wind, the yellow grass was torn in two. A dry screech rang out. The fastest chase of the Okavango officially began. Its body stretched like an arrow tearing through the air. 4 legs stretched out. Shoulders lowered. All its strength went into a single pounce. The impact rang out crisply. The impala lost its footing. The leopard slid on its back. The antelope tried to spring up again, desperately struggling against its fate, but the mother leopard locked it. A quick, clean, precise bite of the neck, instinct honed over generations. It all ended in a breath. The antelope collapsed. The mother leopard stood there, her chest heaving violently, grass falling from her thin fur. She did not roar. She did not boast. She did not cheer. She simply turned her head toward the thorn bush where her two cubs were waiting. The mother leopard bit the impala's neck lightly, dragging the carcass toward the shade between two low acacia bushes. The cub immediately ran over, its eyes shining not with excitement but with relief. A long night of hunger was over. The morning sunlight slid down the mother leopard's back, covering the three mother and cubs in a golden hue, blending with the earthy hues of the gradually awakening Okavango. The mother leopard paused for a moment, taking a deep breath, as if wanting to engrave this moment into her memory before her instincts called her back to the next hunt. No roar of victory. No ostentatious actions. Only the weighty silence of a survivor who had just won what was most necessary to nurture hope for her cubs. In the wild, speed is not glory. Speed is the way out. It is a fragile ticket for those little creatures to live another day. The early morning wind blew gently across the grasslands that had been disturbed by the fierce race. The footprints of the leopard and the antelope faded on the dry, cracked ground, but their story of the fastest chase of the Okavango would remain imprinted in every strand of grass. Every grain of dust. The mother leopard bent down. Dragging the prey deep into the shade, the two cubs clung to each other, each step looming with the future, and today they had been given another chance. The day's hunt was over. The victor left in silence. And Okavango, as always, continued to prepare for tomorrow's new race. As the sun rose again, new steps, new chases would continue to write more chapters of life and death on this parched plain. Between speed, hunger, and fear, each small creature clung to only one thing: to live another day. And somewhere in the sea of golden grass that was shaking in the wind, another chase between cheetah and antelope was quietly preparing to begin. But Okavango had never been peaceful for more than a morning. And on the horizon, a new danger was approaching. In the next episode, will the mother cheetah be able to protect her two cubs from the greater challenge that awaited? And don't forget to ring the bell and subscribe so you don't miss the next wildlife survival series.